First, though, let's talk about Mike McCarthy. Certainly has been, unlike Frank Vogel, you can't just make a strong argument that Mike McCarthy has been the source of some of the Cowboys' biggest problems this season. Probably is. I think it's one thing that Cowboys fans and Cowboys haters would all agree with. Mike McCarthy was the Cowboys' biggest problem, at least for this season. Now, I've been on record saying long-term, Jerry Jones is the biggest issue. I mean, he just is. He hires coaches he can control. He hires puppets. But I looked at this. Now, Jerry Jones was supposed to have a radio appearance on Dallas radio on Tuesday. I'm sure Jerry assumed that he was going to come on there celebrating a big win. And then this afternoon, he was supposed to come on, I'm sure he thought, and say, all right, let's get ready for the Tampa Bay Bucks. Instead, that's going to be the Los Angeles Rams who have that honor. I wouldn't say it's an honor, but you get what I'm saying. But Jerry Jones canceled his appearance on Dallas radio on Tuesday, but he showed up today. And let's just say Jerry Jones wasn't exactly all that thrilled, which is not surprising. So they asked him about Mike McCarthy's job security in Dallas. And he said it's not in the best interest right now to talk about where they are as a staff. So basically, he's not going to say, I'm going to commit to anybody quite yet. However, this was very, very interesting. So I'll get into Mike McCarthy's press conference after I get, kind of dive into Jerry's radio interview. So, Mike McCarthy the other day in that press conference was talking about, we need to improve on this, and next season we'll get to this and this and that. Jerry Jones, quote, let me be real clear. One of the pet peeves I have is I don't like this. Well, we've got to work on this in the offseason. We've got to work on this. I don't go for that. I want those things recognized and addressed after we play Tampa in week 1, after the first game, or after we play the 6th game. By the way, the 6th game was before the bye week. I don't want to wait until we're sitting here with no season left to address these things we're doing or not doing. All that's in the mix here and a part of what I do. That's the way I do it, as you know. The ultimate decision in these coaches is one that I have to make. So, not exactly an endorsement of Mike McCarthy. And some might say, well, I mean, he's just, it's classic owner talk. Mike McCarthy will be back. Listen, I think Mike's going to be back. But it is far from a guarantee. To give you an example, here's what Jerry Jones said about Jason Garrett after the 2018 season. This is the day after the season's over. Dallas missed the playoffs and went 9-7. It was a disappointing year with injuries, and Dak, in my view, had the worst year of his young career at that point. Jerry Jones, after the 2017 season, quote, when he was asked about if Jason Garrett would be the head coach the following season, he said, it's not even a thought for me. I like the fact that we've invested several years of Jason evolving in this profession. So right off the bat, he's like, yep, Jason's going to be back next year. He said that about Mike McCarthy. Now, Stephen Jones, the day after the Cowboys playoff loss to the 49ers, said, yeah, I feel confident that Mike will be back in 2022. Now, again, I will tell you, I think that is going to be the case. I think Mike McCarthy is going to be back next year, and it's going to be the same old story. I already told you. We're going to go 11-6, maybe 10-7 at worst, win the division, go out in the first round to either San Francisco, the Rams, or the Cardinals, or possibly even Seattle's if Russell Wilson stays. On January 15th was when it'd be. Mark it down, Cowboy fans. January 15th, 2023 is going to be the end of our season. Just go ahead and put it down. Because it's going to be more the same if Mike McCarthy stays. Speaking of Mike McCarthy, glad y'all asked. Mike McCarthy had a press conference, a season-end press conference on Wednesday afternoon in Dallas at the Star. And he was asked about all different things, and like that last call, which he defended. By the way, on that last call, instead of blaming the official like he blamed on Sunday, he actually blamed Dak. He said, I told Dak after the game, we need to, he needs to slide sooner. And while I agree, yeah, I mean, I came out and said the show the next day, hey, Dak, you got to slide quicker. I hated the call, hated it. That was the worst possible call you could have thrown in that situation with 14 seconds left and no timeouts. But Mike on Wednesday says, basically kind of throws his quarterback under the bus, which is not what you do as a head coach. Then, and this was the worst part of it, Mike was asked about, hey, coach, your team kind of got off to a slow start in the game. And he said, well, we were nervous. Excuse me? Mike McCarthy said we were nervous. And then later in the press conference, he retracted his comments and said that, no, it was more like angst. There was an angst. Let me give you, if you Google the definition of angst, here's what it is. Hold on, let me get it pulled up. All right, definition of angst. A feeling of deep anxiety or dread, but typically an unfocused one about the human condition or the state of the world in general. Mike, angst is worse than nervous. So, you know what that tells me? You know what it tells you? You know what it tells everybody? They were ready to play. Go back and look at the 49ers. I remember watching live on CBS, minutes before the game started, when the 49ers came out of their locker room. They had swagger. They had confidence. They had a kind of little strut to them, right? They had almost like they were walking on air. They came out of that locker room saying, we're going to win this game. They had one guy even come out of the locker room who had a big like jukebox, or not jukebox, but like I don't know, stereo or whatever, like on his shoulder. It's like, oh boy, this team's ready to go. And shocker, the Dallas Cowboys were not. And so I can't help but think that press conference isn't driving Jerry Jones to say, gosh, I don't know if he can win us a Super Bowl. By the way, Jerry, later in that radio interview, they asked him about Dak. They said, hey, Jerry, you think Dak can win a Super Bowl? And Jerry was like, oh, absolutely, Dak can win us a Super Bowl. And again, I'll get to Dak later in the show. He was like, yes, Dak's our guy. Dak can win us a Super Bowl. Mike, I got to evaluate where we're at right now. Keep in mind, it's the same Mike McCarthy who lied about getting the Cowboys job, or how he convinced Jerry and Stephen Jones about getting the Dallas Cowboys job. Jerry, I cannot help but think that Jerry Jones is not thinking about this moment right here.
You said you analyzed every play or watched every play of the entire 2019 season. What is it that you learned from that experience that you think will benefit you most here?
Well, I need to confess. I told Jerry I watched every play of the 2019 season, but I wanted the job. So I haven't watched every play of the season, but it was just, you do what you got to do, right?
Translation, Jerry, I lied. I didn't watch every play of the 2019 Cowboys season. And you can hear Stephen Jones in the back, like with this weird laugh. He ain't the guy. I heard Stephen A. Smith say the other day, and people think, oh, Stephen A. hates the Cowboys, but he said something. I was like, totally agree with you. And I even said this in the summer. I don't think it's like this big revelation. Mike McCarthy is not a leader of men. Harry High School, Charlie F. around, he don't work here, right? Yeah. That's the guy who I'm going to follow out of the locker room, who's going to win us this game, right? I heard Charles Haley talking about, I think it was Ed Werder of ESPN, Cowboys reporter, was interviewing Charles Haley, the great Charles Haley, 5-time Super Bowl champion, more rings than any player in history except for, of course, Tom Brady. And he was asked about Mike McCarthy saying the Cowboys were nervous. And Charles Haley said, nervous to me? He said, you were ready. You didn't study for the test. That's why you were nervous. So, I don't know if Mike McCarthy is going to return next year. My guess is he will. But even if he's fired, I'm not going to come out on this show and be waving my pom-poms and being excited. Why? Because until Jerry hires a coach that isn't a puppet, why should I get excited? We thought Jason Garrett was bad, and look, I'm not going to be one of those people say, boy, I miss Jason Garrett. I don't miss Jason Garrett, okay? There's nothing about that man that I miss as being, the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Not at all. They weren't this undisciplined. They didn't come out this flat. Matter of fact, oftentimes Garrett's team was kind of collapsed in the fourth quarter. Mike's teams are trying to claw and scratch their way back in the fourth quarter. And often they get big breaks like the interception by Jimmy Garoppolo. or the not letting your your left tackle get set, which Jimmy Garoppolo, of course, did later in that game. So at the end of the day, Jerry Jones has talked about each and every training camp, right? They hold this big press conference, and it's Jerry Jones, and it's his son, Stephen Jones, and the head coach is in the middle. In this case, it's Mike McCarthy. And the reporters in Dallas talk about, Jerry, is this year? Can this team win the Super Bowl and all that? And I remember this training camp, Jerry not only said, I'd do anything to win the Super Bowl, I'd write any check I'd put any dollar amount check to win the Super Bowl. Not only did that, he went so far as to admit, I probably shouldn't have fired Jimmy Johnson. Well, no kidding, Jerry. We've been trying to tell you that for the last quarter century plus. And so if Jerry really does want to win a Super Bowl, and I think he does, I don't think there's any question. He gets emotional when he talks about it. He's tasted success. He knows what it's like to hold the Lombardi Trophy and have confetti falling down from the stadium. I don't doubt that he wants another Super Bowl. I don't think he's blowing smoke like a Dan Snyder or a Woody Johnson or some of these bad owners that are in the NFL. No, I think he's dead serious. But he has to do it his way. Does Jerry Jones want to hire a coach that he lets coach? History tells you no. I'll give Jerry a shot. If Mike gets fired, okay, Jerry. There's some good candidates on the market. Brian Flores, as far as I know, last I checked, he's still out there. Brian Dable, who's an excellent offensive coordinator in Buffalo. Todd Bowles. There's some no-joke candidates. Hey, how about Dan Quinn, who's in your building? There's some good candidates out there. Hopefully not candidates who would lie to you or say, we were nervous or we had angst or throwing the quarterback under the bus. That's the guy you think can lead your team to a Super Bowl? Jerry's thinking about these things right now, and I guarantee you he may have to be talked out of firing Mike McCarthy.